Спасибо, добрый день, здравствуйте.
Хочу вам представить нашего сегодняшнего докладчика. Это доктор Душан Баягич, наш коллега из Сербии, историк и политолог, выпускник Белградского университета и научный сотрудник Института новейшей истории Сербии, работает в Белграде. Доктор Баягич выступит с докладом «Государственное управление в политической системе Королевства сербов, хорватов и словенцев в Югославии». И, как мы договаривались, сегодняшний доклад будет на английском языке. Пожалуйста, доктор Баягич, вам слово.
Thank you very much. I would like, first of all, to thank you, Madam Professor, and of course, to the colleagues who are going to attend this Zoom meeting. As you've just mentioned, today's topic would be the state administration, public administration in political system of Kingdom of Serbs, Croats, Slovenes, and Yugoslavia within the frame of the interwar period. I would commence rather with this one map to introduce one crucial segment of the creation of the state of the first Yugoslav state. Well, according to the documents, Kov Declaration and others, and according to the address of the national councils of the Slovenes, Croats, and Serbs, the areas that belong to the Austro-Hungarian Empire at the end of the First World War, and at a meeting in Belgrade with the representatives of Kingdom of Serbia, the declaration of unification and creation of the Kingdom of Serbs, Croats, and Slovenes was proclaimed. From the first day, the crucial specific of the new state was these several regions, several historical areas that were encompassed in the frame of a new country within its border. What is the specific of this area? This area represents historical areas which were created during the historical development and within the frame and within the and under the control or in areas of different states, empires. Predominantly, if we have the moment that the first Yugoslav state was created, we have in the northwest, we have the historical area of Slovenia. The Slovenia was created on the very first day of the creation of the Yugoslav state, and it encompasses former Austrian crown lands of Styria and Korniola in general. Some other parts also were included, and within Yugoslavia, from the first day, it existed as a completely one integrated historical area. The second one is Croatia-Slovenia, which was also created within the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Bosnia-Herzegovina, Dalmatia. On the northeast part, we have this area over there. I hope you can see. It was the three areas represented Banat, Bačka, and Baranja, something that would appear later on as Vojvodina and would have some historical context in the history of Serbian people in Austro-Hungary Empire during the 19th century. Here we see the territory of Kingdom of Serbia. Of course, this territory was unified as kingdom and created, and as such, it participated in creation of Kingdom of Yugoslavia. Of course, there is also Kingdom of Montenegro. But what is specific with Kingdom of Serbia, it's encompass at that moment, it was actually consisted of newly acquired territories after the First and Second Balkan War, and this is the area of southern Serbia. Why are these historical areas, why are so important for today's topic? Is because they represent 6 completely different administrative legal systems. As such, they participate in administrative, legal, and political life of first Yugoslav state from the very beginning, from the very first day. Let's just give a quick resume of its specifics of these legal systems. Slovenia and Dalmatia belonging to the Austrian administrative legal system. Well, if you have in mind the settlement of 1867 between the Austrian and Hungarian part of, when actually it's constituted the Austrian and Hungarian part of the Habsburg monarchy, within the frame of the Austrian lands, Austrian territory was Slovenia and Dalmatia. Croatia remained under the legal and administrative jurisdiction of the Hungarian part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and it consists actually basically of its. It was founded actually on the Županija system of the Hungarian administrative government rule or division and administration in general. Croatia and Slavonia did have a certain autonomy, which was crucially regarded within the area of education. Upon the settlement between the Hungary and Croatia and Slavonia, the affairs of education were promoted and linked to the regional government, land government of the Croatia and Slovenia, and the Ban, the representative of the sort of the executive power in Croatia and Slovenia. Though it was a rather very complex matter, the Ban was the member of the Austro-Hungarian government, and in general, the Croatian Sabor, the Croatian Parliament, the Croatian-Slavonia Parliament, Sabor, had some jurisdictions in the affairs, apart from education, in the affairs of the agriculture, economy, and and pretty much that was the same. The subdivision of Croatia, Slovenia was the same one as in Austro-Hungary, as in Hungary, founded on the Županija system, with the same frame, with the same jurisdiction in the affairs, in the public affairs, only though that in affairs that were under the sort of the autonomous right of the Croatian Slavonian government, they were separate. They were subjugated to the jurisdiction of the Croatian Slavonian government. So the distinction between these, should we say, public affairs would be as considering these encompassed, related to the autonomy, such as economy, agriculture, education. Everything else, even linked with the Županija in Croatia, as of course in Županija in Hungary, were under the jurisdiction of Hungarian government in Budapest. Bosnia and Herzegovina belong as co-dominion under the joint, should we say, rule of the Austrian and Hungary over the Ministry of Economy of the joint government in the Wien. But it was after the Congress of Berlin that the Austrian-Hungary got the mandate to occupy the Bosnia and Herzegovina. It introduced a completely new and create completely new form of administrative and legal structure, legal area. So it was different, Bosnia and Herzegovina. Nevertheless, it was under the encompass of Austro-Hungarian Empire. It has different legal system comparing to the Slovenia and Dalmatia, those that were belonging to the Austrian part of the empire, and different from the Croatia and Slavonia, which belong to the Hungarian, basically Hungarian administrative system with this specific autonomy. And we have also this northernmost part, Banat, Bačka, Baranja, which were directly integrated within the Hungarian administrative system, and as such, with the characteristic of that system, they've become parts of the first Yugoslav state. Kingdom of Serbia was internationally recognized state at that time with its own legal system, administrative legal system. The same is with Montenegro. So with these 7 areas, should we say, we have actually 6 legal systems that coexisted parallel in the first Yugoslav state from its very beginning. That introduced a specific moment, a specific need actually to create a administration, to create a central government, and actually its influence from the very beginning on the aspects of political system of the Kingdom of Serbs, Croats, and Slovens. So historical areas introduce or inflicted certain concrete impact on functioning of administration and on functioning of political systems. I'll try to resume elements of the political systems, first within the first decade and in the second decade, because we have two constitutional periods in the history of Kingdom of SHS, Serbs, Croats, and Slovenes, and Yugoslavia, or should we say first Yugoslav state. Two constitutional periods, actually it was introduced two constitutions, although there are some opinions and interpretations that the moment when the Banate of Croatia was introduced in the some years before the Second World War, it was actually marked the start or the beginning of the third constitutional period. But later on we shall explain about that. So we have two constitutional periods, so named. We might mark them as upon the constitutional acts. First one, the Vidovdan constitution. So we have this Vidovdan constitutional period, and the second one in the 30s, after the constitution of 3rd September, we could call the September constitutional period. The specific elements is, of course, in the regional government, the functioning of local government and in structure, precomposition, according to these 6 legal systems that were existing from the very first day of the first Yugoslav state. Important moment was actually the intention of the central government to unify the Yugoslav areas. And the moment that was actually faced the opposition within the different political parties and political movements. The scheme, the network, the structure of political parties was very different, very complex during the first period of Yugoslavia, the first constitutional period of the first Yugoslav state. It actually consists of various groups that were basically different, or that were basically grouped themselves upon the question of centralization, administrative centralization, or federative or confederative arrangement of the state. Croatian parties predominantly were for the confederate or federate arrangement of the state, in intention to preserve its historical areas and to basically continue to establish its subjectivity. Other areas, other political parties were basically, and of course, opposed to Croatian parties. Serbian political parties were for the administrative centralization, predominantly centralization, although among them were very different, very wide area, very wide perspective of different concepts and ideas of a state arrangement within that concept of the centralized state. So many of political parties were for the very outstanding form of the autonomous government, of self-government within the local regions. The basic aspect was in Yugoslav Yugoslav political thought and discussion at that time was whether these areas, historical areas in this form, should be preserved or should we create completely new one with some segment with some form of the autonomy. The level of the autonomy was to be discussed, but this is the frame concept. The non-Serbian political parties were very strong advocate for the preserving of the historical tradition, historical areas, and Serbian political parties, considering the ideas deriving from the French political concept that one nation should be unified and one sovereign nation in its intention to create actually a unified and modern nation, they actually advocate a completely new form of the political the subdivision or the creation of new new concepts of local areas, local government units. So apart from this heritage of the historical areas as a crucial one that implemented, that inflicted, that had impact on the functioning of central administration, and that it has directly impacted the political concept, the political form of governments, of political parties, of its political program and political goals. The rest elements of the political system were also, in a way, under the influence of this concept of historical areas. I'll just quick mention that legal system, the courts, the legal system, the system of the courts and of the first level, second level, appeal, Supreme Court, they were different of the composition in these areas according to its own legal system. This heterogeneous structure of the court within the Kingdom of Yugoslavia, based on its legal systems, remain the characteristic of the entire period of its life. So within the period of life of the first Yugoslav state, the unification of the court system was never completely accomplished. So it remains structured, partialized and structured, although some strategic laws on functioning of the courts was introduced, but always in the practice, it was obvious that we have different legal systems. Moment the functioning of central government from the beginning, it needs to, and it's always been important to introduce its authority. The support for the central government was in the person of king, who is considered both in the Vidovdan Constitution and in the September Constitution as a chief of the power. So he was actually bringing laws together with the National Assembly. He issues decree with the government and ministerial and different ministers according to the branch of the government. the courts give its decision in the name of the king. So basically, he was the person of the king, and and the monarch actually was the main support in this moment, in these circumstances, for the central government. The central government, from the very beginning, was obliged to cooperate with the governments, with the regional governments, and its governor within these historical areas, according to the laws that were succeeded from the previous legal systems, and according to the laws, central laws that were introduced during the period of the first Yugoslav state. It was introduced a certain division of the public affairs. The general affairs of the state were preserved, such as military, diplomacy, police, were preserved for the central government, but the rest of the public affairs, according to the circumstances of the local area, were preserved and were divided between the regional governments in historical areas and between the central government. Basic moment was actually the plan of the central government to introduce a new regional subdivision of the Yugoslavia on the oblasti, which was created. This is, I hope we can see this.
Yes.
Okay. These areas were introduced by the law in 1922. It was 33 areas, oblasti. The territory of modern day, I would say, the eastern part, as you see, the territory of Serbia, Vojvodina, in today's terms, I speak in today's terms. So the territory of Vojvodina, Serbia, Montenegro, Macedonia were divided in 19 oblasti, 19 areas or oblasti. The remaining 14 were divided the rest of the country. But each division on oblasti area was within the frame of the historical area. So, for example, the Slovenia was divided in two oblasti, Ljubljanska and Mariborska. But those two oblasti were within the frame, within the borders of the previous historical area of Slovenia. The same is with Dalmatia. Two oblasti in Dalmatia, one with the headquarters in Split, the other in Dubrovnik, but both of these oblasti were actually within the frame of the historical area of Dalmatia. The same is with Croatia, Slavonia, and the same is with Bosnia and Herzegovina. So basically, if that was sort of compromise, that central government, king, Serbian political parties, and all had to accept because the tradition of historical counties historical areas were very strong and it was not actually in a form of necessity to do so. So it could be in a way to preserve its form even when the new system of subdivision was introduced. It was actually the time, I said, the introduction of the local system was basically in 1922, beginning with the law from 1922. But the regional areas of the regional governments in the form of the historical counties continue to work, continue to exist in the next 2 years. So the first that was dismissed or abolished was the government of Bosnia and Herzegovina. It was in late 1923. In the beginning of the 1924, it was done with the regional government in Dalmatia. After that, in Slovenia, and in the regional government or historical government, regional government within the historical area of Croatia, Slovenia was abolished in the February of 1925. Although it was several times prolonged the period, but within that same year, the government was abolished, the regional government. Central government functioning during all of that period, the ministries of central government, the branches of central government functioning in a double mode, if I may say so. Within the ministries, there were the departments that had the jurisdiction over the eastern part of the state unifiedly. So the eastern part of the state were functioning within the same department, but separate departments were created for the affairs within the areas of Dalmatia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Croatia and Slavonia and Slovenia. And that was the characteristic for the first period, practically for the first period of the Yugoslav state under the Vidovdan constitution. Because the local elections for the local government and the bodies within the oblast areas first was held in 1927. Okay, I would explain some specifics of these elections, but I would rather now go on to the moment of the functioning of the parliament, of the National Assembly of the Kingdom. So from the first days, because there was, it was transitional period, the constitution was not yet introduced. I speak about from 1918, from the moment of unification, to the 1921, when the Vidovdan constitution was introduced, was accepted in the Constitutional Assembly. These 2.5 years, we have a transitional period with all of these characteristics that I have mentioned earlier. The moment that actually created this diversification actually as a form of political concepts that was introduced, that was shown within the parliament, is that first representative body was actually transitional representative body, where some 291 representatives were gathered representing the historical areas. So the representatives in the first transitional representative body of the Yugoslav state was the representatives from the historical areas. The election law was introduced in 1920, and then for the Constitutional Assembly, for the election for the Constitutional Assembly, and it introduced that the almost 25 to 30% of population, male population could vote. with the 21 years of age was the condition for voting, and the other elements, but it was the general vote with the pretty much the same model for the vote and for the election procedure that was in France at that time. The structure of the constitutional parliament basically was that, let me just check the moment. Nevertheless, it was predominant with the government, with the political parties, with the governmental or the political parties that were close to government or would create the government. That was the Serb Radical Party, People's Radical Party, and Yugoslav Democratic Party. Both of them were centralized, though in the form of its concept of centralization was a difference, was practical difference. Should we say the more favor in the concept of centralization was the Yugoslav Democratic Party, while the People's Radical Party was rather more for the preserving of the tribal and local elements of the people of Yugoslavia at the time. What was actually very important, it is that within the frame of the first decade, we have, apart from the constitutional elections, 3 more elections for the National Assembly were held. In 1923, in 1925, in 1927. These elections always resulted in a solid representation of the government parties or governmental parties within the National Assembly. So they always have a solid structure of the representatives, which depend on the elections, varied from 34% to the 49%, and including the smaller parties, the other political parties that were at that time represented in the parliament, they could form the majority in the representative body in the National Assembly over the 50%. So they always could govern on the strong positions in the parliament. It's not so important. It is important in a way, but I mean characteristic of that foundation within the parliament of these governmental parties. But of course, in the political system of the kingdom, the first Yugoslav state, the person of king, the King Alexander I Karađorđević, played a prominent role, and actually he always influenced, he always made the support for the government, for the central government, and also he was the person who arranged the composition. Predominantly, he always arranged the person, he always chose the person who would be the prime minister and who would him give the mandate to form the government. So in this aspect, the central government, nevertheless, it was always a short period, couple of months. The governments were changing very often. Important thing that the radicals remain on power within that period, practically in each government, except in 3, and for the first decade of the Yugoslav state, they didn't participate in government, in central government, only for 293 days. So this is the indication how actually political system that was based on the dominance of the governmental parties and basically very structured coalitions. All those coalitions were included several fractions within the same party or different groups. They were, for the functioning in the parliament, very stable, and that's the crucial element. Also, the government was in favor, basically, in position to remain on power according or as long as it was this structure in parliament stable, but even more with the support of the king. Even more with the support of the king. So let me just go back to these elections, local elections of 1927. They didn't bring anything special because governmental parties win in almost 19 of the areas. Actually, radicals win in almost 19 of the areas, and more than 20 was win by the governmental parties. The Croatian Peasant Party win in several oblasts, like 4, 5, or 6, I can't tell exactly, but this actually shown this proportion that was characteristic in the elections within the first decade. The elections for the National Assembly. Croatian Peasant Party was predominantly strong in the areas that were predominant with the Croatian population. And the general vote really improved the conscience of the Croatian people and managed to overcome these regional particularities that were represented and that existed among the different areas. So the Croatian Croatian Peasant Party in the 20s in Yugoslavia had a prominent role for took a prominent role and became the leading party, leading Croatian party and the leading national party and movement within the Croatian people. So it's basically gathered together all the political concepts and the ideas that were characterized as a matter of how to arrange and how to position the Croatian and Croatian people within the Yugoslavia. The rest of the political spectrum predominantly held, as I said before, People's Radical Party and Yugoslav Democratic Party. Although the shifts within the Yugoslav Democratic Party would happen later on during the 20s with the separation of the group of Serbian politicians from the Croatian territories, from the that's hailed, that have that political base and that operate in the territory of Croatia and Slavonia. It was later on influenced in the composition of the parties and its positioning on the elections, and later on in the parliament in the 30s. What is important for the first period? The complete heterogeneous structure of Yugoslavia, the different legal systems, the lack and undeveloped system of communication, the basically undeveloped markets and general economy, comparing to the European standards at that time, all inflicted that Yugoslav state was in a way subdivided or was actually overwhelmed by this subdivision on the historical areas, that was even more enlarged, even more empowered by the fact that they represent the different legal areas, the actually different markets, different form of market operation and business, and the lack of the infrastructure, the railroads, the roads, was circumstances that complicated even more the situation determined by this division. So the specific of political system required, urged in central government to create administration, to create unified administration, to create an administration as trusted, as loyal, as operational segment of the executive power. We see that the parliamentary system, nevertheless, on the occasion of the election laws, on the election procedure, on the moment that certain parties form a very stable coalitions, the National Assembly, the Assembly expressed, were exposed actually all the contradictories, all the oppositions within the society. So it could not be an intermediary and one place that these differences could be reconciled or could be easily negotiated or agreed. That was for the National Assembly. The system of the courts, the judiciary system was diverse and remained diverse. So the society could not actually participate, could not be regularly, could not be in a full measure introduced within the state over the National Assembly, of the national representation, and over the judiciary. that was that create an urge, necessity to introduce an effective executive branch and to create an administrative system within the executive branch of the government, so to manage the state and to manage the public affairs. And Yugoslavia, first Yugoslav state, introduced in 1923 the general law for the public servicemen in the country. It was conceptualized on the traditions of the Serbian administrative government, which was based in 19th century and create under the influence, combined influence from Austria, Hungary, France, Belgium, etc. This law of the public servicemen from 1923 was based on the European legal theory, France, Germany, and intention was to create a professional administration. So the basic components of the Yugoslav public serviceman, functionary, and whatever, was based on 4 categories. A public service, so the serviceman was introduced into public service, his affairs, his area of engagement was within the public service that was created either by the state or some other public corporation, but it was on a benefit and with a strict social function to introduce, to react within the wide area of executive branches. The public serviceman was he was obliged, or he had to declare his free will, that was the second concept, to accept the public service. Without that, he could not become the public serviceman. And it was also very much important because it was later on for the creation of his third status, the incorporated, the incorporation within the frame and the hierarchy and the structure of the professions and of the services within the state or within the public corporation. The incorporation was very much important because it implicated, it marked that apart from the hierarchy that one person belongs, one serviceman belongs, it requires technical, apart from the basic and necessary education, it acquires technical abilities that are needed for the specific profession, for the specific job that he intends to do, and to mark the determination that he belongs within this body of the public servicemen that execute one or several important jobs, professions, upon which is based a certain segment of the public administration or executive branch of the government. The fourth element is the payment, which includes everything else, beneficiaries, material beneficiaries that are required for a public serviceman for a moment when he needs to take his duty in some area of the country, to travel, or to move his family, or to have enough conditions, material conditions for regular living. These elements constitute the state official, the public administrator, the public serviceman. Of course, the legal law from 1923 introduced the unification of the public administration, of the administrative services within the executive branch, and unified them in these categories: public service, billing, acceptance of the job, incorporation, and payment. The rest of the auxiliary elements of the public administration were also introduced or were also encompassed in the system, but they lack some of these qualities, depend on the nature of the contract, and basically on the nature of the contract, how they were conceived, their job or their profession. Apart from this, the kingdom, Yugoslavia, brought two other laws for the military personnel, for the military and navy personnel, and law for the traffic personnel, the same within the period of the 1923, a couple of years, some period later. But these three laws, and especially the laws on the military and navy personnel and traffic personnel, were basically the same as these, or were heavily founded on this law of the civil servicemen. The other areas of public affairs were regulated by laws which had the parts, which had the regulations, very prominent, very frequent regulations that were consisting, or basically that were laid upon the law of the Constitution, or the law of the public service. So basically it was formed one system for the public administration, in which the center was the law for the public servicemen, which took the role of the central legal document, legal act, central law for the public administration within the country of Yugoslavia, of the first state of Yugoslavia. The importance of its document, it was worth to mention that at that time, France, Third Republic, didn't have any unified law for its public servicemen, functionaries. Germany also didn't have. It has some law from the imperial era regulating the public services and public servicemen on the imperial level, but the rest of the countries within the Empire of Germany remained with its local different legal systems. The unification of public services, public servicemen, the law of the public service in Germany came under the Nazi rule in 1937. So Yugoslavia had this unified law of the public services, service and public servicemen from 1923, the same, basically the same with the slight differences, only of legal matter, was introduced in 1931. It was even more due only because it was the period of the monarchical dictatorship in Yugoslavia, or the personal regime of King Alexander I, and because the other system law of the Yugoslav state was introduced at that period. So basically it was repeated in a way, and without any crucial change in the form. So why Yugoslavia need this administrative law is obvious, because from the beginning it was faced with the different, with the heterogeneous, with the completely complex situation within its borders, and its need for unification in a favor of government, in a favor to create favorable circumstances for functioning of central government and for the functioning of the state in general, in wider aspect of its affairs. Its need, it was urgent need of this law for the public service. The foundation of administration in Yugoslavia was laid by this law. As we see, it remains the same. The principles of organization and functioning of administration remain the same within the period of both constitution, Vidovdan, and the constitution of the September the 3rd. This only took changes within the impact that came from the political system. The personal regime, the King of Alexander, was introduced after the parliamentary crisis in 1920, after a severe parliamentary crisis broke out in Yugoslavia in 1928, when an incident in the parliament, when one representative of the governmental party, a radical party, after the quarrel and insults that he was received from the representatives of the Croatian People Party, took a revolver and killed some of them and injured several others, of whom some later on died. And this created a tremendous impact. It was an entire shock for the system that almost create a crisis, and very, very strong crisis, very strong political crisis, which influenced, which actually leave no other option to the king and to the central government other to dismantle the political system or parliamentary system, forbidden political parties, and to start a personal regime in favor of national consolidation, of state, of consolidation of the society, and to introduce ideology of Yugoslav integration, integral Yugoslav ideology, as a main and basic political concept, as a doctrine and ideological element upon which should reconstitute, recalibrate, reform the entire political system and entire system within the Yugoslav state. According to that, the new system laws for the government were introduced, the new constitution were introduced. So I explained basically the new law for the public service introduced, but he in a great deal preserved or was laid upon the concepts introduced in the law of 1923. So the system was intention actually was to create an integral, unified state, Yugoslav nation, and the action, the measures, the project were taken in various areas, from the education, from sport, from the areas of economy, industry, commerce, and whatever else. It was actually it was recognized as integrative factor, as a factor that would benefit integration of the Yugoslav state. The political parties were forbidden for 2 years, and the regime, personal regime, the monarchical dictatorship existed only for 2 years. It was actually history marked as generally as negative process, the dictatorship as a negative process, as it has a bad impact on the society and the state. Basically, it lasted short. It didn't have too much time, and it was happened in a moment when the economic crisis, world economic crisis, was in full capacity, and the consequences of the crisis were devastations on Yugoslavia and its society and its economy. So basically, the whole plan was aborted, was cancelled under these circumstances of economic crisis, of the interior factors, of the interior circumstances, and under the influence of the foreign factors, foreign powers. It is worth to say that the key ally of the Kingdom of Yugoslavia in interwar period was the French Third Republic. The relations were not so easy, were not so calm, and always in a moment with the necessity to take the wider picture of French policy and French interests in Balkans, in Adriatic area, in the Mediterranean, in the Europe in general. So Yugoslavia and King Alexander was here to actually follow something that was advised from France, supported by the official policy of the Czechoslovak Republic, which was the prominent ally in the Little Atlanta and the key factor also on the international, in the sphere of international policy, as considering Yugoslavia and its king. So the abortion, the cancelling of the dictatorship was done and without achieving any of its goals that it proclaimed within the unification and integration and consolidating the Yugoslav state. We entered in a phase of the new political, prominent political disputes and clashes, open arguments that were now, according to the political system, electoral system, and other aspects, provoked the enlargement of political parties. While we in the kingdom of Serbs, Croats, and Slavs, we have a variety of political parties, different by its concept, ideological, doctrinal. They were monarchical, they were republicans, they were communists, they were everything else. Communists were forbidden in a very short time, even in the early 20s. But there were other parties, clerical parties. There were the parties that basically were in a wide area of wide spectrum of political action. In the kingdom, later on in the 30s, during the Kingdom of Yugoslavia, in the second constitutional period, we have a certain enlargement, groupation, concentration, grouping, concentrating of different political parties on the lists, on the political lists that were candidated on the elections. It didn't change in general the political concept. It's remained in basic that the governmental parties that were created and supported by the King Alexander, and then the Prince Paul as the head of the regency after the assassination of King Alexander in Marseille. These parties were consisting its practical political programming, formulating political program upon the request, upon the concept, whether it should be centralized state, decentralized state, federal state, confederate state, or what form of state organization. This remains as a crucial question in political life in the Kingdom of Yugoslavia. The concepts were different. Croatian parties, Croatian Party, Peasant Party, after the assassination of Stjepan Radić in the National Assembly in 1928, led by Vlatko Maček during the 30s, was actually becoming, it was even in the 20s, but in the 30s, it's actually encompassed all the elements, all the physiognomy of the populistic party, which had tremendous impact and winning tremendous support among the whole Croatian population. It represents the opposition bloc in the Yugoslav politics. The other pole was the governmental parties, as I said, introduced and supported by the crown, and composed of the politicians who were very close or very devoted to the crown, in an aspect to continue to preserve a centralized state, a central administrative form of government, centralized state, with the wider autonomies in the regions. in the local governments. So let me see if I'm going to, yes. Can we see this picture? Sorry.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Thank you. This is the Banovina, Banovina territorial organization of the Kingdom of Yugoslavia. 9 territories, 9 Banovina, larger obviously than the oblasti, but with the same concept. You have the governmental, the executive branch within the Banovina, represented by Ban and his advisors and his cabinet. The other that would emerge from the local areas were the representatives of Ban's council and Ban's committee as an executive branch of local government. The system, the idea to introduce self-government with a wider sphere of autonomous possibilities to provide autonomous functioning of the affairs important and related to the interest of particular Banovina was something that was planned, and the original idea of the political concept of Banovina system. This system of self-government or autonomy was not fully provided, was not fully operational under the system because the executive power still remained in dominance. It remains because of this sort of transitional period where it should provide the implementation of the system, providing the functioning of all of its elements, and to confront with complete different approach and ideas that derives from the opposition, from the oppositional political parties. So the elections held in the Kingdom of Yugoslavia in 1931, in 1935, and the last one in 1938. These elections show the dominance of the governmental parties, benefiting or thankful to the electoral system, but nevertheless, the problem within the society, within the political aspect, remained the same. Central government, central administration, administrative services actually took main role, took great deal, took a prominent role in functioning of entire administration. Because of these political confrontations, not fully enough introduced Banovina system, not implemented in full capacity, the central administration on the mode that was established in the early 20s, confirmed in 1931, continued to work, continued to operate, and took prominent role in the administrative life of the state. The political aspect of the state was that we have against the governmental bloc in parliament, the governmental structure of political parties, we have the opposition structure. They actually try to make some sort of agreement of joint operational action against the governmental bloc, but they preserved strictly different views, opinions, how to arrange its political concept, what would be their common ground for the reorganization of the Yugoslav state, whether it be centralized, whether it be federalized, confederated, whatever else of form of state arrangement should be introduced. So the basically the discussions and the concepts remain the same within the whole period, and culminating in a sort of agreement among the all opposition parties, and within that opposition bloc, unified opposition bloc, it's gathered, it's found themselves as a member as Serbian political parties from the opposition, Croatian political parties, mainly Croatian peasant party, and some other parties, local parties that remained and that survived in a niche of the political system during the years. And this was actually the moment that they tried to negotiate the form of the centralized state, or this rearrangement of the central state, and to introduce a new form which should be a result of these negotiations. The negotiations were complex, and the parallels of the political system basically was obvious in a way, in an element of the political life, in an element of the functioning of the political parties. That really implicates the role of the state administration. While the politicians negotiate and quarrel in a moment, in some period, the administration should and take the great deal of the state functioning, take it on itself to regulate the everyday life and needs from everyday life. The final agreement was reached and the elections of 1938 didn't basically change the relation of between the governmental parties and the opposition parties. Throughout the 30s, on all three elections, especially on elections from the 1931, were actually only one list was on the elections, so we didn't have practically the opposition within the parliament. But on the 35 and 38, both elections showed one relation that 2/3 in parliament, 2/3 belongs to the governmental, 1/3 belongs to the oppositional bloc. This political situation was should we say was cut, was determined, was finished by the intervention of Prince Paul, who changed the political leader and prime minister Milan Stojadinovic as a representative of centralized political concept, with a new political leader of the governmental bloc, Dragiša Cvetković, and instruct him to start negotiations with Vlatko Maček to solve this continual political problem and crisis within the Yugoslavia, to fulfill some of the Croat demands, to meet them, to fulfill and to find a form of the arrangement between the Serbian political parties, governmental parties, and Croat movement, people's movement generally. It was already, in a way, become a movement at that time. The agreement, the solution was in creation of Banovina Hrvatska, that encompass, I don't have with me this picture, but let me just explain. The basic demands for Croats were, and the idea of their movement was to create a Croatian national area within the Yugoslav state, and the Croatian Banovina was created on the area of Savska Banovina and littoral Banovina here at the Adriatic coast, encompassing these small red lines represents the frame of the Banovina Hrvatska. So some counties from Drinska Banovina, Vrbaska Banovina, Dunavska Banovina were transferred to the territorial integrity, to the territorial whole of the Savska, of the Croatian Banovina. The moment of the creation of the Banovina actually represents the moment that was the rearrangement of the political system, and within the political system, the concept of the state administration of the Yugoslav state, of the administrative services of the Yugoslav state, the public administration. Why so? Apart from its territorial range, apart from political and political concepts and programs that were in dispute during these years, the concept of Banovina actually marked a sort of coexistence of two subjective, two subjects in one body, in one state body. It has the direct implication on the administration. So the jurisdiction, the form of the concept of the Banovina administration took almost all the responsibilities in the areas of public sphere in every aspect, considering the economy, the agriculture, the education, the financing, so the wider aspect. And it's almost required the concept of coexistence of the negotiating aspect of equal responsibilities towards the administration. So administration in a sense was divided, and it has its responsibility as it's to the political bodies and representative bodies of the Banovina Hrvatska, as the same in the to the central government. So in a way, it's become intermingled jurisdiction between those two entities: the state as a general, as a whole, and the Banovina as a specific, and the national Croatian Banovina as a specific, separate unit within the Yugoslav state. Nevertheless, this period is by many considering a new constitutional form, because introducing the Act of Banovina with this ingerention and jurisdiction, the areas of the affairs of the administration, was actually the marked the finish, the end of the second constitutional period, the constitution of the 3rd September. It was introduced on 26th August 1939. It was almost the eve of the Second World War. In operational segment, the Banovina in full capacity is not implemented by the beginning of the Second World War in the Yugoslavia on the 6th of April 1941. And as the general, the system of Banovina in Yugoslavia was not fully implemented entirely before that period, before the creation Banovina. This nevertheless marked a new phase that would have, and it had implication on the functioning of administration, of the executive power. So basically, the civil servant in Banovina, Hrvatska was and could be represented himself, if that system was introduced in full capacity, could represent himself as a civil servant of Banovina, Hrvatska. And in some aspect, he could, if he wished that, but it was not clearly defined, could represent himself, could think of himself as a part of the official state administration of Yugoslav state. And that would be all. I thank you for your attention. Sorry for the moment if I was enough clear and if there was some mistake. And I would like to thank you for your attention, and I welcome your questions if there is any.
Thank you very much, dear Dr. Bayagic. Dear colleagues, have you any questions to our esteemed speaker? Please. Можно по-русски задавать вопросы, если кому-то так удобнее. So I have one question. I'd like to ask you about an impact of confessional problems, if there were ones, and if there was a language barrier. I mean, Slovenia, was there any language problems during the integration of these lands to the unified state of Yugoslavia?
Yes. If we take this in a frame, in an aspect of the political system as a political factors and elements, so the religious group, religious organizations, confessions, did have some impact variously. Not the same, but did have some impact in political system. They even might be considered as a certain form of pressure groups within the political system. The clerical concept in the Roman Catholic Church provided key political parties as members of the of the political system of the first Yugoslav state. Slovenian People's Party, led by priest Korošec, is actually a clerical party. Croatian Peasant Party was a radical people's movement. It has some certain anti-clerical attitude, and it was a very complex and diversified social program and concept. But its basic role was actually that it took the benefits of the Yugoslav political system, general vote, regular elections, political action, public action. It impact mainly on the constitution, the national constitution of the Croat people within the first Yugoslav state. It was the national party, overwhelming and dominant national party, linked with the prominent demands and concepts and programs of the positioning the Croatian people within the Yugoslav state. Were there barriers, linguistic barriers? There are a specific, which is my personal opinion. I don't think it would be recognized as other with the other colleagues, but it is my personal opinion, and it has some ground within the historical sources and literature. Slovenia as historical land did not consisted before the dismantle of Austro-Hungarian Empire. It's constituted from the crown lands of the Habsburg Empire, Habsburg crown, as Slovenia, predominantly, as I said, Corniola and Stria, predominant. Other areas were included, but not much. This area was as a part of the lands of the former Austro-Hungarian Empire, led by the National Council of Slovens, Croats, and Serbs, took part in the negotiations, their delegations, the members of the member of delegations in the negotiations in Belgrade on the act, negotiating the act of the 1st December unification of the country. Within the period of Yugoslavia, the Slovenia is actually in part widely autonomous, with its own language, with its own administrative sphere, with its local government, with its prominent political parties that could very much be in favor of its own national identity. So the first, from the 1918-1919, we have the local government, the historical area, the lands of Slovenia. Then these lands were divided into two oblasti, only two oblasti, Ljubljanska and Mariborska oblast. These, with the local administration, the administration was Slovene. They introduced its university in Ljubljana. The legal organization and form of the Belgrade University with the University of the Autonomy was the model for the modeling and establishing the University of Ljubljana. So it started with the autonomy of the university from the very beginning. The importance to note is that Croatian University at the beginning of the Yugoslav state did not have the autonomy of university. Its autonomy was territorial and linked, provided by the autonomy of the Croatian and Slavonia land, historical area. And one important and interesting thing, the professors, the lecturing personnel, the professors of the Ljubljana University was mainly recruited from the Slovenian higher administrative officers that were served in Dalmatia or in the crown land of Corniola and Styria. So they basically, from the very beginning, had its national elite, if we regard the university. They had their self-government in the Slovenian language, concerning the areas, the oblastis, and the Drava Banovina that was created in the Banovina system in the 1929 was basically the only one national Banovina within the Kingdom of Yugoslavia. More than 95%, even a greater number of the population were the Slovenians. So basically, throughout the whole period, they were in a position to enjoy a certain amount of autonomy, whether in self-government and especially cultural autonomy. Considering that they have the university and that they have all the accomplishing institutions operating regularly in the Slovenian language. As a concept of integral Yugoslav politics, it was recognized even in the constitution that official language is Serbian, Croatian, and Slovenian. So Slovenian was in use in public administration, and official documents were published in Serbian, Serbo-Croatian, because of the agreement already established at the time. So Serbo-Croatian, in Latinic and Cyrillic letter, and in Slovenian language at the same time. And the key aspect of the Slovenian position within Yugoslavia is that the main political body was gravitating to the clerical party of Slovenian People's Party of the priest Anton Korošec. But he was very cooperative, and he was very important component in the political system. He participated. He was his party was the one that always constitute the governmental bloc of parties. The members of his party were the ministers, took in charge of several ministry within the central government. In one occasion, Anton Korošec was even the prime minister of the central government, and that was the period of the moment when the crisis in the parliament broke out, when the assassinations took place. He continued to play the crucial role in the political system until his death in the 1940s. And apart from that, the other Slovenian political parties, like liberals and integralists, were the integrative part of the Yugoslav political parties that were for the integral concept of policy. The integral, the realists, they were engaged, they were determined to accomplish the ideology, to realize the policy of integral Yugoslavia. Some of Slovenian parties took the prominent role in these parties, in this movement. So basically, they were Yugoslavs, very loyal Yugoslavs on the central state, on the whole state level, and they were Slovenes, culturally self-improved, culturally self-established in their areas of local government. Whether they were oblasti, whether they was Banovina, they had that position within the frame of the history of Yugoslavia.
Thank you very much for your answer. Any other questions? I don't see any questions. So let me thank our speaker from Serbia for his interesting and essential speech report. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It was my pleasure. Thank you very much.
На сегодня мы заканчиваем наше заседание. Если позволите, будем рады всех видеть на следующих балканских семинарах. У нас есть еще докладчики, в том числе из балканских стран, которые планируют выступить с заседаниями. Всего хорошего, коллеги.
Thank you. Thank you.